do the fat girl thing. Democratize live music. Holly Hagerman, founder. Holly Hagerman founded amped.com to reconstruct and democratize live music. Amped Up is an online platform for venues to find, book, and build relationships with musicians while streaming, touring, routing, venue search calendar, availability, and other time-consuming tasks. How cool is that? My favorite part is the LGBTQ. Okay, here we go. Bam. Howdy, one and all. What's going on? Thank you so much for being here. Hello, my friends. My name's Sonia Javette. I am here and happy to be here. Let's see. Today we have wonderful guest. Today is going to be Miss Holly Hagerman, and if I pronounce her name wrong, you can tell me later because I apologize. Miss Nat Price, and then Miss Heather Webb. Let me first run this beautiful commercial here. 2 seconds, y'all.
Meet Amped Up, a web platform that helps venues find, book, and build relationships with musicians. We streamline booking so crucial details like sound check times, W-9s, and more are taken care of, leaving space to build the relationship. Our founding mission is to make it easier for musicians to make a living, to ensure people of color, women, and LGBTQ communities have a fair shot, and to make any city a music city. Visit ampedup.com to see how our tour routing tool can save days of planning. There are no subscription fees for musicians, and it's totally free for venues. We don't just want to reopen the music industry, we want to reconstruct and democratize it.
Wonderful. I love it. That was beautiful. Let me bring Holly on. Boom. Hi, friend.
Hello.
Today.
I'm great. So happy to be here.
Thank you so much for joining us. And I am so excited to talk about this new wonderful app that is going to be put out here. Let me read Holly's bio real quick. And am I saying it right? Is it Hagerman or Hagerman?
Hagerman.
Hagerman. Holly Hagerman founded ampedup.com to reconstruct and, what is that word?
Democratize.
Nice. Democratize live music. Ampedup.com is an online platform for venues to find, book, and build relationships with musicians while streamlining tour routing, venue search, calendar availability, other time-consuming task, ampedup.com makes it easier for musicians to make a living, levels the playing field for women, people of color, LGBTQ musicians, and aims to make any city a music city. That is my favorite part. All cities should be a music city so that we can all be able to play more. Thank you so much for being here, Holly. Let me see. So I have questions, but I want you to go ahead and talk about your wonderful new product. I'm going to pull up the questions.
Well, we are here to solve a few basic problems and answer a few basic questions. So there are really only 3 questions that need to be answered by any business that really attempts to help musicians. I think the first one is, why is music so important to us, yet musicians struggle to make a living? And are we collectively letting musicians down by accepting the status quo? And also, why don't any of the current sites work to help solve any of these problems? So those are 3 of the kind of basic areas that we're focused on. And then looking at the problems for musicians, that they're spending 60% of their time cold calling. They're often receiving low pay or having trouble negotiating or not getting paid at all. And then when they arrive, there's sometimes the communication can be a little bit disorganized, or they're missing crucial details like production contacts or sound check times, or they're waiting at 2 a.m. For the bar to close so that they can count the till and get paid. So those are the problems on the musician side. And on the venue side, they're facing monumental problems as well, just to stay open, with a year of shutdown, months of shutdown at least, and reduced capacity. They really need to have an industry professional to know who's going to sell tickets and who will have crickets. So they have some old systems like Gmail and Google Calendar and Google Docs. And what we are trying to build will really streamline all of that and bring them together so that venues can find musicians, and then streamline all of the process in between so that the booking is seamless, easy, and reduces the time.
I love that. That should be like a pop catchphrase: tickets or crickets. What you got there? Let me bring on Nat and Heather. Both are musicians in the Austin, Texas area, and they are both. Nat is familiar with the Amped Up a little bit, and Heather is just now being introduced to it. So, welcome. Thank you both for being here. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Holly, perfect question. What does the equity in booking mean for me as an artist, or anyone in the music industry? How is Amped Up helping with that is a great question. Let me put that towards all 3 of you, I guess.
All right, I'm going to let the musicians take a stab at what it means to have equity in booking for them first.
Heather, you want to go or me?
Go ahead, Natalie.
Okay, great. Well, I know it's been a weird previous year. So like this past year set aside, a thing that has been hard in the past is even having a voice with a venue. Because unless I'm well known, or unless I have someone else vouching for me, it's hard to even get in front of a venue. Besides cold calling and that, I mean, we all have to learn how to do that. But it's especially hard for new musicians figuring that out too. So that was one issue I was having early on, is depending on who you're working with, like if they don't have a relationship with the venue, you're not going to get in to the venues that you want to play. So that'd be one thing.
Yeah, I agree. A lot of times, when you're just emailing, just reaching out to anybody, it just goes out to nothing. You have no idea if it actually reached a person or not, because if you don't get an answer back, then, and a lot of times you just don't get answers back.
Well, and the problem is amplified for people of color, women, and LGBTQ musicians. That statistically, and we don't have really good data on this, but what we find is that those historically marginalized communities. They're marginalized across all industries and especially in music as well. So they're receiving lower pay and fewer gigs. However, the problem is how do we tackle that? I mean, it's like a lot of issues, systemic issues with diversity. What we have tried to do is raise awareness, but awareness is really just too slow. So we have implemented some technologies to really improve that. And we're hoping to work with organizations like the City of Austin and other organizations, not only to standardize fair pay for musicians. There's a working group at Austin, Texas Musicians Organization, 501c4, that's already working to tackle that. And we are hoping to implement those standards, as well as working with the Austin, Texas Musicians Sisterhood for their standards that they're working to create, a certification for female-friendly venues. So what does that look like? What are some of the things that are necessary? So those are some of the ways that we're tackling it. But most importantly, on the back end, and this is something that venues have actually told us that they really want, is not only the ability to find diverse musicians, because we all have our networking bubbles and they may not be as diverse as we'd like them to be. But second of all, to help us understand how we're actually behaving and doing our booking practices. So on the back end, they'll receive private alerts and a graph that shows them how they're paying, and if they're doing that equitably, how often they're hiring musicians of color, women, things like that. And then they'll receive a gentle alert just letting them know, hey, you're falling below the standards, or receiving a badge that lets them know that they are letting other musicians know that they're an ally of diversity. But I'd love to hear maybe from Sonia too, if you have some thoughts on what it means to be more diverse with booking.
This is your app that you are creating is exactly why I'm excited to see where it's going to be, how it's going to develop, because that is something that I absolutely run into, because I'm all three of those things. I'm a female, person of color, and LGBTQ. So I'm like, can I just play? I can sing. I don't sound too bad. And I can play guitar. Can I get in? No? Okay, next. So I look forward to having something I can just diddle it and put my info in and go, you like? Yeah? No? Okay. That's going to be wonderful. I look forward to it. Mm-hmm. So my issue with most of the time when it comes to booking, like, if they see my profile before they even hear my music, I am immediately swiped left or up or whichever. So,
yeah, I was speaking with. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Heather.
I was gonna say, how do you know that?
How do you know what people identify as, or are you asking Sonia?
I'm asking, how do you know that people swipe you before listening to your music?
Often it's been because if I follow up on someone wanting to book me, it's generally from some other artist that has already recommended me. And if I don't get a response back, then I'm like, oh, fair enough, move on, next one.
Yeah.
Well, and I might add a little context that I've heard in interviewing a lot of different people and musicians of color. First is that the issues with diversity, or the subconscious bias that can happen, can make a person feel crazy because it isn't clear, and it's very rarely overt in this day and age. It's more that they can't understand why they're doing all of the same things that their peers are doing, that the quality of their sound has been verifiably equal to their peers, but they're not receiving the same. And in talking with some musicians that, they'll speak with other musicians and they'll agree that they're, I heard this from a white male musician, and he was talking about a Black female musician saying that, she gets so much less than I am even offered. And her quality is just as good as mine. And so I think that hearing about it from a white male person really helps to verify that crazy making feeling of what's going on. So it's unverifiable, but we can start to bring some validity to what's going on and track it. Right now, there's no way to track it. And so now we can start putting some technology behind that. Another person I spoke with, a white male country musician, a Canadian country musician, he was saying that he has a Black country male musician friend. And he decided not to put his picture on the covers of his album because he sells more when his picture's not on it. And he believes it's because he's Black, and that Black country musicians don't get as much traction. So those are some of the stories that I've heard that could be really difficult for people of color or women to say, yeah, I didn't get this because I'm X, Y, and Z. There's really no way for them to say that. It really has to be the white men or white women in their life that can say it from the outside, I think, in terms of validating.
So your Amped Up is going to have for each venue will have like a rating system on if they're like female friendly, or what is the standard for that?
We are working on that standard. It's being created currently. So we're working with the Austin, Texas Musician Sisterhood and their committee that's working on fair pay standards as well. So first and foremost, we're just going to track it. So we will provide them a graph in the back that says, you're hiring this many women versus men. You're paying men this much, you're paying women this much on average, just so they can see it. And the studies show, the social psychology studies show, that when you can present people with the data of their own behavior, first and foremost, it's going to affect the greatest behavior change. The second greatest, and perhaps greater than that, is when you can see how they stack up to their peers. So there will be another element to that graph to say, venues in your area of a similar capacity and genre are booking women versus men at this rate, so that you can see how you compare. Now, in terms of the public view, we're going to step into that cautiously because this is sort of a new world for everybody, and we don't want to penalize people. We want to provide them information and encourage them in the right direction. So we will give them a badge when they meet our standards, but we won't, at the beginning at least, we won't have any kind of rating system. It will just be a badge.
That is so amazing. I absolutely love that. That will help so much. The quote is, get through the no so you can get to the yes. That's I love that. Let's see, question. Nat, what has been your take so far on getting started with the process of getting signed up? Was it difficult to sign up? Like sometimes you go to join a group or an app or something and it's just so much stuff. You're like, I don't want to do that. How has it been for you to do to start?
My experience so far has been that I had a person walking me through the process of making sure I could fill in all the information, and if I had a question, they could answer the question right there. And that person for me was Holly. I don't know if that is for everyone, but that was really helpful. And, since this is all still pretty new and like it's not actually launched yet, right? There are still a few bugs and everything, and so I'm helping to find a couple of those bugs to get everything worked out. But I've been really impressed with the kinds of information that they're putting up there, and also that potentially all of the information that a venue needs to know about me as an artist, they have at their fingertips as soon as an agreement is made. So like they have pictures that I'm comfortable with them using of me for their graphics. They have whatever information they need for me, a W-9, whatever. If there's specific requests that I have for a venue, it's all right there. We don't have to send 15 emails, figuring out this detail or that detail. And vice versa. Theoretically, I believe I'll know the venue's time frame and setup and load in and everything. I do have a question about that, Holly. Will that be easy to share? If I'm hiring a band, would it be easy for me to share with bandmates that information, like load in and everything? Or will they have to individually create profiles to be able to view that information?
We're working on how that's going to be shared. Right now, it would be a simple, email of the contract, like a PDF download. However, you may not want payment information and that sort of thing shared with others. So we're working on how that's going to be shared with your bandmates. The goal is as soon as possible, but probably in the new year, like a January, February timeframe, you'll be able to add in, everybody will have their own profile, and then you can add them into your band. So if one musician is part of 3 different bands, then they can essentially log into each one of those bands. They can be invited and have user permission. So maybe they won't see the price that you've gotten paid, but they'll see all of the load in times and things like that.
Cool.
Mhm.
Is there any kind of confirmation email? Sorry, Sonia.
No,
Is there
you go
any kind
ahead.
of confirmation email set up to like that sends the basics like that? Just confirming you've got this time frame and everything, because that'd be easy to forward to bandmates.
Well, the great thing about being in this VIP 100 musicians club, our first 100 musicians, is you get to make great requests like that, and we can make them happen. So actually, we're working on our notification system starting next week. That's the final kind of end cap to launching our app. So at the end of August, it should be ready to go. And I will put that on the list today, and we will make sure that that's what the email looks like.
Cool. I just know like sometimes things happen and like the drummer's out, and I'm like, I got to find a drummer, and that person's not necessarily on Amped Up, and that person also needs to know the information. So
Yeah,
just trying to
absolutely.
think through how to get that out if someone's not on Amped Up and they're in my band.
I'm writing it down right now. So when you see it, you will know that it's because of you.
Cool.
I have a question, Holly. The payment system that's going to be set up in there, is it going to be like Stripe or something, or
Yes, very good.
Venmo,
You know your
or
payment systems. Yeah, so we're using Stripe, the global leader in payment processing in general, but especially for marketplaces, taking it from one party and giving it to another. So we're using them. They also work in multiple countries, so I think that that'll be easy for us to expand, not only for us to go into other countries, but for other countries to come to us. And in going to the Folk Alliance conference, which was wonderful, by the way. A huge shout out for the Folk Alliance community. They're really great. What I found is that lots of people want to come to America. And I think that this tool will make it easier for them, but we do have to kind of figure out the taxation legalities and things like that, but it should make it easy. And you touch on something that's really important. So in terms of diversity, in terms of women, historically more vulnerable communities, staying in a bar at 2 a.m. and waiting for them to count up the till is not always the safest way to do it. Whether you have to go to maybe some back room to find a bar manager who you don't know, have never met, and you're alone with, is not always safe. Maybe exiting a bar or a restaurant with hundreds of dollars in cash in, maybe a back alley to get to your car, not always safe at 2 a.m., depending on what the neighborhood is. And so our payment system allows you to immediately get access to those funds as soon as your show is over. And if it's a ticket sales or bar sales situation, both parties will be notified to come together. So again, we want to build that relationship wherever possible, but automate the things that are going to tear that relationship down. So the payment process is automated. The venue will be alerted to put in the payment information, like how many tickets were sold, and you can go there and speak about it together and make sure you agree on what those numbers were before they enter it. But if you're not feeling well and you want to get the heck out of there, the manager's nowhere to be seen, you can. And the musician is protected with some of our policies in terms of payment to make sure that they get paid, and that the venue has all of that payment information input before the show happens.
brilliant. Love
Good
it.
stuff. I've got a question. So, say I'm trying to book a tour. So I go in as a musician, and I have my own profile, right? And then all of the venues have their own profiles that I can peruse and find, map out my tour. But I'm only dealing with venues who have created a profile, right? And signed up and put all this stuff in. Is there a way that I can find other venues that maybe
Great
I want
question.
to play, but they're not on there yet?
Well, so that is the beauty of what we are building. So we have spent months. We've hired someone who's actually a talent buyer, in the area and for a really great and wonderful venue. She did an excellent job sorting through the internet, crawling through the internet, finding Yelp, public directories, the Texas Music Commission, Google, looking at all the things that she could find, looking at bands that she liked and where they had played. We actually have someone calling tourist bureaus to find all of the wineries within a 100-mile radius of Austin. So we feel very confident saying that we have the most extensive venue database on the internet for our service area. And so we're going to replicate that every time we open up to a new area. So the only limitation will be how fast we can move to other areas. But for each area, we want to present you the best information. So our tour routing tool has that database loaded into it. We've spoken with a bunch of musicians. By the way, we need some beta testers for our tour routing tool. But we've talked to a number of them that have said that their own database is really critical. So we're trying to work out a system where not only can you access our database, but you can upload your own database and it will mark those with a different color or an icon. So you can see, okay, I want to go to Atlanta. Okay, here are all of the venues that are recommended for me by the Amped Up system. Oh, and all of mine are in green. So I can see where I've played before and where I have connections. And that way you can determine who you want to approach first, work on getting your anchor gigs through those, and then use our database secondarily, because we all know that warm calls are better than cold calls. So you will have our database even if they're not on the platform. Now, our hope is that as you're pitching them and connecting with them, that they will come in contact with Amped Up and want to join it. But it's not necessary because we will be providing as much information as possible for them.
That's cool. Okay,
That is cool.
So let's say one of these venues on your database, but that's not a member yet. Can I send them my Amped Up profile and them still get all the info they need about me from there?
Absolutely.
And that might, that's how they can sort of be introduced to it, I guess, and create their own profiles.
I have a question about that specifically. How does that, if the answer is yes, is like my W-9 information public information at that point?
Definitely not. No,
Okay.
Definitely not. No.
Just saying, like, questions we don't think about till I'm filling out my information. I'm like, I'm giving this to a random person. And I'm like, what address am I using? Is this my...
Yeah. And so you can actually see when you go into your profile and you build, so we call it a listing. So each band is a listing, each venue is a listing. So you can have multiple bands that you represent or multiple venues. So you can go into that listing. You can actually see the viewed profile. So you can see what people are going to see as public information. All of that private information is only delivered. First of all, your W-9 is not delivered anywhere because we handle all of your taxation reporting and things like that. It actually never even goes to the venue. So that's an additional safety aspect. But to answer your question, Heather, about what they can see, this is a very intentional decision on our part to make sure that this platform, because we want to champion diversity, champion isn't the right word. We want to live it. We want to make it accessible at every turn possible. So an important part of that is making sure that we're not blocking people with subscription fees and requiring logins and things like that. So venue can see your profile without ever logging in. Now, if they want to book you, they have to log in because they have to submit their payment information. But you could use it just as a tool to get your own clients. You can even add your own shows into Amped Up just to manage it if it's easier for you and so that your calendar is blocked off and seamless. So we want to make sure that this is integrated easily into your everyday life and that you don't pay a dime unless you make money. So in terms of us being accessible and making sure that we're not being accessible only to the more wealthy, well-off musicians that have already made it, because a lot of these sites, they have tiered options. So you can only access all of the tools to make your business a success if you pay more and more money, but then there's no assurance that you're going to have a return. And we didn't want that. We also didn't want any barriers or blocks for the venue. We wanted them to be easily and seamlessly connect with you and connect with our platform and book you. So while they will need to actually have a login to book you, there's no fees for them at all. It's totally free. It's totally free for you to use everything on the site. And then once you get booked, there is a 10% fee. Now, part of that does go to support our mission, which is to create a steady stream of grants for musicians and venues. So a portion of every booking fee goes directly into that.
That's great.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
I think we might have talked about this at one of the mixers. Is there, I know maybe not at the moment, but is there or will there be like a, not widget, but like, will Amped Up push to our other sites that there's like 8 websites where we need to be putting our shows, you know, like show dates and stuff. How is there an integration factor to this?
So this is something actually just came up yesterday when I was talking to Jessica Bailey Forsyth about the amount of places that you guys need to update constantly. So that will be a challenge. It's something that we will ask for your patience on as we build those integrations and determine which ones are the most important for you. So we do plan on having them. We don't know exactly what they're going to look like. And we hope that your voice will be shared. You'll share your voice with us and let us know what you want. But yes, so the first widget that is planned is something that will go on your site so that somebody could just come to your site and book you. They don't even need to come to the Amped Up platform. They could just kind of go through that whole thing, and they can stay branded to you. Now, the second part of those integrations are things like calendars and integrations with Facebook events and those sorts of things. Those are all possible. It's just going to take some time for us to make them work.
Have you worked with Bandzoogle yet?
No, I haven't even heard of it. Bandzoogle?
I'll type it in the private chat really quick.
It's a replacement for CD Baby, but yeah.
Oh, really?
No,
okay.
it's a website. Like it's where it's who I use to create my website, as opposed to like Squarespace.
It's who I use as well. But Bandzoogle was CD Baby.
Oh, cool! I didn't realize that.
Yeah. That's how long I've been in the game.
Yeah, me too.
I mean, I use both, but I just must have forgotten if I knew. I was just curious because what goes on you?
I was gonna say, Holly, is it gonna be similar to Bands in Town? Have you used that?
I have, yeah. So I don't see Bands in Town as a competitor at all because they don't do booking. We are a booking platform.
Correct.
Now, what we have to figure out is, are we going to integrate with Bands in Town and find an API or something that will marry the two so that you can take your Bands in Town account and then it will merge the information? Or do we provide something similar? So that widget that I'm talking about that would have like all of your calendar information on your website. Or perhaps, as Natalie just said, maybe instead we just offer the ability for you to create your own website, and then, it's just all there and you don't have to put widgets and fool with code and stuff like that going onto your website.
Oh, that's not what I meant, but that's interesting.
Oh.
I just meant like Bandzoogle has some limitations in creating the site, and so I was wondering if you had talked with them at all about making sure we have access and can link those two together.
Okay.
I can go in and like poke around on my
that.
site. We can offline on that, but I just came to me that question.
Okay. Did I answer your question, Sonia?
You did, and then maybe had another one, and then I forgot the other one.
Sorry, Sonia.
No, you're doing good. I love this. Is what we need, right? This is what the industry needs, is for all of us to be brain powering to improve the situation so that we can all do better and not be struggling.
Oh, I have a question, Holly. I assume this is already worked in, but I know especially right now, if I were to try and book a show right now, a big question I have is there an outdoor performance space, or is this an indoor venue? Is that pretty prominent right now in questions you're asking venues, or like, can I filter based on that,
You cannot do that currently, but I'll look into adding it. Is that a specific COVID concern, or is it just a general you like playing outdoors versus indoors?
Well, I mean, assuming it doesn't get shut down or called off, I'm supposed to go on a brief road trip that will be at least a couple days long. And one of the stipulations of the artist I'm going with is that they are not booking shows unless it is an outdoor space or an outdoor venue, specifically because of COVID right now.
Okay.
So I was just curious if there's a way to like filter out. Don't even mess with people who don't have an outdoor space, Don't even
Yeah, we
waste time
don't
there.
have that filter yet, but I can look into what it would take for us to get that. I think that's pretty important for COVID. And what are the other things that you would like to know for COVID? Is it just an information section? We do this. Is it a checkbox? We clean after every, I don't know, whatever it is. We require all of our people to be vaccinated. I think that should definitely be a part of it. We just need to have a little bit more conversation about what those are going to be.
Cool.
I like
Specs
that
about-
idea about the outdoor thing, even past COVID, because I mean that's really a good thing to know. Anyway, I think it'd be
Yeah,
cool
if it's
to be
like-
able to search by that.
The middle of summer, maybe I only want to play inside in Texas,
Yeah.
Like it could be the
That
opposite
is-
after COVID.
That is a very good point. Yes.
That will change what I choose to wear on stage. If I know that it's going to be at 5 p.m. on a very hot August day in the middle of Texas, and maybe there's no shade, I'm going to dress differently than inside.
Yeah,
It's
that makes
not the
sense.
dressing room part, but the do they have a raggedy bathroom? Do you have
Yeah.
a clean bathroom or a raggedy bathroom? And
Absolutely.
Or any bathroom.
how about that? Oh,
Is it a porta potty? What's happening?
Well, and so this goes into some of the important elements of a contract. So most of the musicians that we talk to don't have a substantial writer. They may not have anyone at all. So this is something that we are making it easy and accessible for you to put onto your profile. So as soon as a contract is created, and this is something that I know Pat Bukta of Austin, Texas Musicians is really loves and thinks is so necessary, is a contract every time. And this is not a laborious and weighty contract full of legal jargon. It is basically a checklist to make sure that everybody's on the same page, because everybody's a busy professional. Reopening is a monumental task. So this is going to make sure that sound check times are listed, production contacts are listed, load-in times are listed, marketing efforts. So who's doing what marketing? As Natalie said, all of your logos, marketing assets, downloadable photos, approved photos will be accessible to them after the booking is approved. And a few other things get in there as well. So your writer automatically flows in from your profile. So for example, if it's I think you may even have this, Natalie, on your writer, that if it's an outdoor space, you require shade. Some people say, we want a water bottle at every musician station. So encouraging you to speak up about the things that you need. And then also it'll say things like the hospitality offer, if you're going to get meal tickets or drink tickets. So you don't have to leave that to the last minute, or it's not an afterthought. It's actually part of the decision that you're making in terms of how much money am I going to spend to make this gig happen? Because it's right during the dinner hour. I have to eat and my entire band has to eat. So if you multiply that by 5 people in a band and they each need to spend, $10 to $15 on a meal and maybe another $5 on a drink, then you're looking at $100 just for the band to eat. So how does that work out in terms of what you're getting paid? And then you as a musician, and we believe this very strongly, that you cannot make the best career decisions if you don't know exactly what you're going to get paid and what the terms of the deal are. And this is good for everybody. This is great for the venue as well, to make sure that in one shot they have everything delivered that they need. There are no surprises. They don't have any unhappy musicians at the end, and they're not wasting time haggling over things that should have been decided 6 months in advance. So this is what we're talking about taking away and automating some of the things that can tear down relationships, and really focusing on bringing you together to talk about things that can really build the relationship and that are important to have that human-to-human contact.
Oh, that's beautiful. Let me
Another thing-
give y'all
go
some
ahead.
feedback real quick. Holly, her partner is a musician, right? That's where all of her wonderful knowledge probably all started from. I didn't ever ask you, are you a musician as well, Holly? Do you play an instrument? Did
I
you play
sing
the
lullabies to
recorder?
my children at night.
That
I
counts.
grew up playing the piano, and that's about the extent of it. I am a music fan. I love music. It feeds my soul. I don't know if you saw me, because it says that the host could see you before, and they had the little jingle before the. I just like when I hear music, I have to move. So I am literally married to music, and we have 2 children together. But my background is in business and digital marketing and scalable marketplaces and things like that.
Fire, as the hashtag says. Fire, fire, fire. Audience members, any questions from the Austin Music Television Channel 16 VIP room? Questions? We will wait. And let me see.
I have
else do I want?
another thing to
Yes.
say about the tour booking that would be really helpful. I don't know if this is something that y'all do, but if the venue is providing accommodations, either hotel or, in some places like touring Europe and stuff, a lot of venues give you a place to stay that's like upstairs or whatever, So having that be a part of it would be really helpful for tour booking too.
You're muted.
You're muted, Holly.
So that is not a part of the venue listing currently. We had anticipated that that would be an offer that may change, from each one. And so in the contract, when they submit the booking request, they will say, drink tickets, food vouchers, accommodations, flights, things like that. But we can look into how standard it is for venues to provide that across the board, if that's something that we could create a filter for, because that would certainly make them more desirable, and they
for
might
sure.
like that.
Yeah, for sure.
Heather has done quite a bit of touring.
Have you been over to Europe touring through there?
Yeah, it was great.
Where have you been?
We've been to Germany and Belgium and the Netherlands and France, kind of all over.
Well, I ask you because my husband is French, and we just got back from there because we were sort of happily stuck there. We went over there before the pandemic to see his family, and then got a little trapped because we have 2 small children. It wasn't safe for us to fly back, but I have interviewed musicians and heard from them how different it is to tour in Europe. And actually, that is what created the third part of our mission, which is to make any city a music city, because I felt a sort of sadness that I would see how infused the live music culture is there, and not just in bars and restaurants, although it certainly is. I mean, remember I went to Ireland one time, and there's just like a band of men. I think there was like a bachelor party. There were older men and younger men, and it was all sorts of men, and they just stand up and start singing ballads. It was beautiful, and it was so much fun, and that kind of thing is not abnormal there. And in France, what I find is that that's in a establishment, but even in the home, music is so much more infused. We have several French friends who are full-time professional musicians, and you have to, ask them to bring out their instruments when we all have dinners together. In France, every single party breaks down into a dance party or a music party of some sort. So even if they're not a professional musician, a guitar will come out, people will start singing, people will start dancing. It's just part of the everyday life. Whereas here in America, what I find and what I've been told by other musicians is that it's a little bit more of a precious thing. So and there's a spectrum. So you're kind of on one side where music is a little bit more a precious thing, and it's expensive, and as it should be. Musicians should be paid for their talent and their art. But people that fall into that category often are music lovers. They have an identity around it. They track live music. And then the other side of that spectrum is you have musicians that are background music, and it doesn't always feel good to them either. Nobody claps for them. Nobody acknowledges their presence. And my mother always taught me that you clap for a musician after every song because they're giving you some of their art. And that's not always the case. And so my hope for America is that we can start to infuse live music in a different way, showing our appreciation to artists and musicians in a different way. And most importantly, making sure that live music is in every city, because it is. It's not that we want to make it that way. So we want to make it more accessible to the musicians to find. I also used to live on an Indian reservation, and we were 30 minutes from the nearest grocery store, like any grocery store, not even like our great Whole Foods kind of situation. All we had was like a corner store. They did have actually a great medical facility there, but most of the small towns around us had no grocery store and they had no physician, but they all would have some kind of live music. And so live music is ubiquitous. It is around us everywhere. And what I hear from musicians, and this is something that Pat Gupta from Austin, Texas Musician reiterates all the time, is that musicians, we often think about, oh, there's so much competition among musicians. You're so hard to get a gig because there's so many of us and so few of them, but it's just not true. So what we need to do is make those gigs more accessible and more open to everybody, because they're there. And the people in those small towns, I've heard from musicians that they are so appreciative. They welcome you in. Often the pay is even better. I've had other musicians tell me that it's great to be a musician from Austin. It's not great to be a musician playing in Austin in terms of pay and things like that. So I think that we can spread the love.
Holly, I can agree with that part about the. I hate it. I'm getting old. two sentences ago. Okay, so I'm of the age where we used to, if you had a gig, you shared it with your other musician gig friends in the town, because the more of us that show up and do the job and we bring more people to those venues, the more that venue is going to be able to pay other artists to be at that venue. So it's extremely advantageous if you share the knowledge about a gig. Like, there's a lot of gigs that happen in this town that I know nothing about, and when I find out, I'm like, oh, that's cool, let me see if I can get in there. It would be great if we would start doing that more often, but we are like that. We're stingy with the gigs, of sharing the knowledge of the gigs. I'm like, we need to change that so that we can all start making more money, if that makes sense.
Well, and I think that feature that I talked about, allowing the musicians to upload their contacts, we have talked with musicians about how can we make it optional for you to maybe check mark individual contacts or all of the contacts and essentially upload them to the system to share with everybody else. Now, there are some privacy concerns, and we want to make sure that not every musician wants to share all of their contacts, because the person on the other side might not be very happy about that. So we have been encouraged to do maybe like a 2-step process where we contact them, make sure it's okay. So I'm not really sure exactly what that will look like, but we're going to start building it very soon. And so my hope is that we can, in terms of democratizing it, every democracy requires every participant's participation. That's what makes a democracy. So perhaps that will be a feature that helps us as well.
That would make sense too. Like, if I got an unsolicited text or email or phone call from someone, it'd be helpful to know, like, oh, Sonia Jevet thinks that you'd be interested in Amped Up for this reason. Click here to confirm or to be taken off the list. Something like that. That would make me feel better than just, I don't know, like, I didn't even pay attention to your first email that I got. I don't know if I said this live. Look at what great friends we are. I know. I don't think I said it in the sound check, but the first email I got from you, like, it wasn't a bad email or anything, but like, I'd never heard of Amped Up, and I get a lot of emails that are kind of spammy that I just, if it's another app or something that I'm unsure about, like, I just sort of I have so many other things to be paying attention to that I just disregarded it.
I
And it
hear
took a
you.
friend saying, "Hey, did you get that email from Holly?" I chatted with her, and I think it sounds really cool. And I was like, "Oh," and I went back and looked, and I was like, "Okay, I'll reply to the email."
Well, and you're absolutely right. And that's an element. And this will be much further down the line. We've got some really cool and exciting ideas for like phase 2, phase 3. And actually, like phase 3 was originally going to be the business. My husband and I were going to start something modeled off of something in France that he grew up with, which was rehearsal space and like a concert hall and a cafe and bar and things like that. So we would love to have some of these to act as like, again, to build those relationships and have a physical hub for musicians to come together. But what you are alluding to is a little bit of social networking. And while we have no interest in being the next social media platform, what I do love about things like LinkedIn, and almost no musicians that I talk to are on LinkedIn, or like they've got like 5 contacts on there. It's just not really a thing in the industry. You're a good job, Sonia.
I can even broadcast from here.
Oh, cool.
Oh.
Okay. But what I think would be really cool is to allow those contacts, kind of like on Facebook, like if you see something pop up and it says, it's an advertisement for a page, and you can see that 5 of your friends like the page, well, then it's more interesting to you. So we'll probably do something like that, that will allow you, and again, this is far off down the future, but will allow venues to see that you're connected with this musician who's already played there, and maybe they can vouch for you, or they can see what kind of relationships you have in the company that you keep. So that will help them be more receptive to your pitches.
That's cool. Do you have a launch date?
Well, our MVP
yesterday.
Our MVP launch, our minimum viable product, so our kind of phase 1, will be the end of August. So our goal, though, in order to launch, is that we want to get 100 musicians on the platform. So we still have a little ways to go on that. The VIP 100, as we call it, is a club that has a lot of perks, and we're working to build a strong community among those members as well, with mixers and events. We want to have mixers with talent buyers as well. There are other perks, like the first 5 bookings will have no booking fee. They'll be totally free. So there's a completely risk-free experience for everybody involved. You'll also have, my personal cell phone and be connected with me and give me great ideas like Natalie has been feeding me throughout this call. And you'll be able to see those come to life. As well as a number of other things, like being of the first recipients for those grants that we do put out. We'll be choosing from that VIP group. I don't think I answered your question. What was your question?
Launch date? You said end of August.
End of August. It's end of August. Now the tour routing tool, which we call like MVP luxury, that will be more like end of November. So we're going to be doing a Kickstarter to help fund that and get everybody involved as well. So be looking for that Kickstarter. And the tour routing tool, I think, will be really fun. Extremely useful addition to the site.
Cool.
I have 6 months left of school because I'm in school right now. That is my goal, so that's the perfect timing for me.
Congrats.
I want to be out.
You're so close.
I want to be done.
What are you studying, Sonia?
Communications, because I don't think I'm that good at it. In the back of my head.
Yeah, you run your own show.
Because I want to help. 6 months, so I want to go out and I want to do college tour and college festivals in 6 months. So next March, April, whatever, out there. So the app should be like running, and I'll be able to turn it on and be like, look at it running. That's what I want to do. So I've never been on tour. I've never been on tour. I don't have an agent. I do all the booking myself. So.
Well, it's not easy. I understand why agents exist. It's a lot of work, and not always coming from the same skill sets. An artist's creative power and in writing songs, putting words together to a melody, and then making their fingers and their muscle memory work. Those are totally separate skill sets, which is obviously why you're going to school to add to your repertoire. but it's totally separate skill set. And that's really where this all started. I was working on this other business with my husband, and the pandemic happened. We were actually in the process of writing the business plan. It was the night of my birthday, and we were totally locked down. And I just had this light bulb moment, and I was like, why is it so hard for musicians? And so I started interviewing them, and we've done hundreds of interviews. Each interview has been, every single one of them is a stranger to me, a new friend to me. They've all been recommended by somebody else that thinks this is a cool project, that we're onto something. And each interview has been 2 hours on average of deep listening. So some of them are 3 hours, some of them are a little bit less. But it's a lot of deep listening so that we can make sure that we can capture what musicians need.
We are excited for
I'm
you.
excited.
I'm so excited.
I'm excited to get to like work, like actually use the tool.
Yeah.
Well, so for anybody that's listening, at the end of August, if we have that 100 musicians on the platform, we will be ready to open it up, and you can book Natalie and you can book Sonia straight from the platform, and it will be free to everybody.
Maybe by then, Heather too.
Yeah.
Heather,
I hope
just-
so. We would
I was
love
just-
to have you.
Heather does this really cool thing where she teaches a bunch of people how to become a band. Heather, I was just thinking, all those, what do you got, like 6, 7, 8 bands that you're working with right now? That would be so fat. You put them on that thing and be like, the blah, blah, blah could play here and the blah, blah, blah could play there. That would be a sweet addition to your band class thing.
I would
Yeah.
love that.
That
I
would
would
be
love
fat.
that.
Cool. Well, I signed up on the website.
Okay,
Well, I mean,
excellent.
I put in my email, but I didn't see a sign up. But you're gonna.
I will get in
Send-
touch with you.
Okay,
Yeah,
great.
we because as Natalie said, we walk everybody through the sign up, and this was something that we were doing for the beta version of it. And we've decided, as long as it doesn't annoy people, we're going to do this. We're going to do this regularly for as long as possible, and just make that a part of it. Because first and foremost, we believe that a strong community is what's going to make this a success, and so we want to build those relationships. So we will be in contact and help you build your profile as well. We'll give you a tour and then help you build the profile.
Great. Looking forward to it.
Right. Although Sonia is the only one that slipped in. There were like 3 days on, or maybe 2 days on the website where you could actually sign up straight from the homepage, and she slipped right in and got a profile in. And
All right.
Sonia is the natural glitch finder to anyone out there. Sonia, if your product's supposed to do blah, 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 and Sonia goes to it, it didn't do it. That's because I am the glitch finder. I find it. I don't mean to. I don't want to. It just does.
I feel like that could be like a baseball card, the glitch finder.
I am the glitch finder. Let me see what your product's supposed to do.
well, and before we go, I would love to hear about booking experiences or booking horror stories that you might have, and why you think that booking could be better. Why not just keep doing it the way you're doing it?
Who, me? Or all of
All
us?
any of you, all 3 of you.
I'm curious
Who
about
wants to go
Heather.
first?
Well, like the things that we've used in the past to just book tours. Sometimes I've been on tours where we've been booking tours while we were on the tour. Like,
You're not alone.
next month. You know what I mean? So it's just like really short-term booking and stuff. And we use this thing called Indie on the Move, and it's like a database of tour venues and booking agents and whatnot. But that's really great, and we've used that. But to have everything all contained within the app, I think, and with the contracting and all the money exchange and all that together, I mean, that takes it to a whole new level. So I think that that would be really awesome. And the big picture is, this is a great idea. This is a wonderful website, and I really appreciate y'all coming up with it, because it's gonna make things so much easier for people that book their own tours, like I have done in the past. It's just it is such a pain in the ass to kind of get all that stuff together. So having everything in one location is going to be amazing. So I'm really happy to hear about all this.
Right, great.
Yeah.
Although I have to have a clarification that it was a very collective effort. Literally every single musician that I have spoken with has given me some idea that we have directly implemented into the site.
Great.
So kudos to everybody that has been willing to give their very valuable time to us.
It's gonna be
Very cool.
magic.
Yeah.
You want to talk about yours? Bad booking.
I've
The
just,
nice version.
I know, I was like, where on television? And
Make it nice.
I mean, things that have been frustrating in the past are, I mean, I remember, I think I shared at a mixer that more recently, like I had a friend who booked me with her to do an event, and she pitched it one way, and then the booking agent circled back and pitched something different, like, oh, it's actually all covers, all upbeat covers. And I was like, I was told this thing, and I kind of asked a couple more questions, and then I was just like, fine, whatever. Like, I'll do this. Like, the money's not great, but it's like, fine. And I get to play with my friend. That was the main reason I did it. And then it was like, 3 months in advance, and I had a lot of stuff I was doing, and I checked back in about a month out because I hadn't heard any update, and found out from my friend, because I was like, hey, what are the details in that thing? And she was like, oh, booking agent told me that you didn't want to do it, so she booked someone else.
Oh.
And then she canceled it. Like, something happened, and the entire thing was canceled. So I still had it on my calendar and was, like, gonna show up. And not only was I taken off of the gig, but then the gig itself was canceled. I was just like, I couldn't imagine. Nobody told me, and I wouldn't have known unless I asked about it, And then, like, things that I find frustrating are, like, if you've gone through the process of, like, putting in effort to promote a gig. And I remember I was on a gig with someone that I really respected and was really excited about. And it was a multi-city, it was like a weekend, and it was like 3 different cities in a weekend. And I showed up to the last one, and it was super cold, and it was partially outside, and I just didn't know that. And so I was very cold and worried about my voice. And I get there, there's no sound person, there's no communication, but all of the times that we were told and advertised were an hour early, or an hour late. No, if we advertised 7 p.m., it didn't start till 8. And I was like, how is this not something that you inform everyone about? Like, I just, just things like that. They're like, I try so hard to be a good communicator, and like, for it to be like, didn't know it was outside and it's super cold and I'm not dressed for this. And then also, like, it's an hour off, like, the advertised time. I don't know. I just felt like it makes us look really bad. Like, we don't know what we're talking about if we're advertising a thing,
Yeah. Well, and those minor time changes, from what I understand, are pretty common. Or like in talking with the talent buyer, she was saying oftentimes, somebody will have trouble getting off work. So then they'll want to go later, and they'll want to, try to move the acts around. And
it was just a pretty big act. Like, it was weird to me. Like, I haven't seen it on like a bigger act. It wasn't like 2 local indie people. Like, it was like a person touring. And
well,
just, like,
what I mean is
thing.
that it sounds like those time changes are fairly common, and getting communication to all the parties can be really challenging. And that's why these contracts are so helpful, because all they would have to do is go in and edit the time, and then everybody on that would be notified of it.
That'd be huge.
And you would have to approve it. So it's not like they could just make the change and then, like, what happens if you don't see it? What if you miss the notification? Right. You would actually have to approve it. And then at the top of the contract, it will label when the contract had been most recently updated and approved, so that you always know what version you're working off of.
Yeah.
And these are professional things, right? Like, these are what we do as professionals. But when you're working with so many different people all the time, like, those level of professionalisms, the tools that they use are all different levels. And so this just kind of, again, levels that playing field a little bit.
All right, ladies, I have decided that Emma is basically a digital agent. That's pretty much what it feels like it's going to be for me in my world. And I want to say thank you so much for being here and having this conversation and sharing this space and your knowledge and wisdom. Holly, thank you for creating something that sounds like it's going to be like, I'm trying to keep clean. Okay, filter.
Revolutionary.
There you go. I love that. That's great, Heather. Revolutionary. And yes, if you both have gigs that are coming up, please share them. Where are you playing at next, Nat?
This weekend, we'll be playing in Dallas, but it is now a live streamed gig at Poor David's Pub, and I'm a special guest of Nobody's Girl, and I believe the live stream starts at 7 p.m.
Sweet. Which day?
Sunday,
Okay,
2 days from now.
You should drop the link in the comments.
Let's see if I can.
Heather?
My next thing is I'm doing a Jam Room showcase on September 5th, and that is a showcase of all my students' bands. And that's going to be at the Barn in South Austin.
And it's so fun. It's so fun. It's her stuff. Me, let's see. In 2 hours, I'll be doing stageit.com show, and then Saturday with my mask on and everything, I'll be playing at the Loft Hotel Northwest from 7 to 10.
It's gotta be. Is it hard to play with the mask? It seems like it would be. Just
So
sort
the
of like the
first time I
physical
did it-
exertion of all.
I have asthma, so the first time I did it, I almost panicked and had that I'm leaving. But I finally got this mask, one of those masks that there's a piece of plastic in the front that you can put over your face, and then the mask goes on top of it, so it gives me room for my face to breathe, because sometimes the material is too thick and I can't breathe at all. And I was like, no, that doesn't help. So I've gone through about 10 masks. I've gone through the face ones that you cover your face. I'm like, I just fog out. I can't see anything. That doesn't help. And then it sounds like you're going like, I'm like, I'm not doing that. It's not right. So I've gone through several, but yeah, I finally found something that works for me.
Hey, Sonia, I shared a link through the private chat. Do you think you could share it to the comments? I don't have the other thread open.
Here, I got it. I'll do it.
Yeah, they're perfect. Thank you.
Thanks, Holly.
For sure.
All right.
All that helping people share their gigs. And just wanted to say to what you were just saying, Sonia, about us launching this and everything. It's really important that we keep this community strong and that communication going between our musicians, because we want you to keep us honest and make sure that we're delivering on all those promises. And I know that there will be a lot of patience involved. I know that there will be glitches that you will find, Sonia, only you will find, and features that are not built yet or that may not function exactly the way we want it to. But I hope that everybody feels that we're in this together and that we are building something together. And I think that every time somebody can see a button or a link or a feature that they came up with and that they know that they built, or that it was their idea, that they can sort of nurture it and see it through to the end, until it gets to where it needs to be.
Spectacular. Thank you so much for being here, ladies. I appreciate you all. And I'm gonna
Thank you for having us.
You're very
Thank
welcome. This is what I'm good at. So I'm gonna put on the commercial